Hi, everyone. Welcome to eWeek 2021. My name is Jonathan Brower. I'm the president of the ASCE Dallas branch. This week, we have a series of speakers lined up for you to give you a look into the world of civil engineering and hopefully encourage you all to pursue a degree in civil engineering and then pursue a career in civil engineering. It's a very rewarding industry to be involved with, and all of our speakers this week are really exciting and have a lot to share with you all. We're going to start off the eWeek presentations with Alexis Clark. She works at Hilti, and she has a really inspiring story, and I'm excited for you all to hear from her. So we'll pass it off to Alexis now.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for having me here today. I'm really excited to come back and present to the CE Club. I have been there a couple of times in the past, so I don't think there'd be any upperclassmen who've known me before, but I've been involved with you guys since about 2015. So thanks for having me back again. I always enjoy working with this really fantastic group of students, so sharp and bright and talkative. So thanks for having me. I'm going to present something a little bit different today. This may not necessarily seem like traditional engineering to you guys. I know you've been doing a lot of hands-on. You've been learning about civil engineering, a little bit of mechanical and aeronautical. But I'm going to speak about something that tends to be overarching to all different types of engineering industries. So whether you focus on a specific area or you're more broad, there's always an opportunity for engineering and business to overlap. So hopefully this is something exciting, something a little bit different, and we'll dive right on in. Before I begin, I did want to kind of share just a little bit about myself and kind of make sure that we're on the same page, because I know it's hard as a high schooler to sometimes look at people in their profession and connect with them. So I wanted to share some personal stuff so you got to know me before we dove into this. First, when I was in high school, I wasn't just like, I knew that I wanted to be an engineer. I thought I wanted to be an engineer. I really loved buildings and all these different things, but I didn't just love engineering. I had other interests. So it's okay if you also have other interests and also enjoy your math and science strengths and enjoy engineering concepts. So I played on a lot of team sports like volleyball and basketball. I was really active in musical theater and theater as well. So I like to be theatrical. I like to talk and be funny and do all those different things. And I also have an artistic side. So I like to paint. Anything that has to do with creating and building and making something cool or creative is right up my alley. So just again, if you have other interests outside of just engineering, that's okay. As adults, we also are multifaceted and have multiple interests. There's a lot of things that I did to prepare for my career in engineering, and I'll share some of those specifically within high school and college and some of the things that you can consider doing as well. But in general, if there is something that I was interested in, I gave it a fair shake. I tried it out, and the ones that I found were really something that sparked passion in me. I invested my time there. I didn't spend a lot of time at home after school. I tended to be in organizations and also challenge myself to do new things. I sought leadership opportunities. So many of you might be an officer of National Honor Society or a language club. Those are all fantastic things that you can do now to start to build your passion as well as your leadership skills. And I challenged myself through different competitions to, first of all, challenge whether or not I actually liked to do something, as well as to build that aspect of being able to work in a team and be competitive and meet other people from different places who had similar interests. And lastly, since it's eWeek, I love being an engineer today because I get to use seemingly unimpressive materials or seemingly common things like steel and concrete, and we get to build it into something beautiful and fascinating and functional and inspiring on a good day. I get to work with a lot of different people. I work with some engineers, but not all engineers. I work with people from different cultures, different backgrounds, all over the globe, and all different walks of life and all different perspectives. And it really makes the work that we do fun and interesting, and I learn every day. And lastly, any engineer, anyone who is out there with a problem-solving attitude and a problem-solving mindset is doing work to make the world a better place. And that gives me passion and drive every single day to do the work that I do. All right, so a little bit about the company that I work for. So I work for Hilti in North America, here in the US and Canada. What's kind of neat about this organization is that it is family owned by the Hilti family. They started in a garage like in 1941 in Liechtenstein. which is kind of like, I like to think we're like the Apple of power tools. So we were born in a garage, just like Apple was. Does anyone know where Liechtenstein is?
That little red dot on your map?
It is that little red dot. So if you can see where the arrow is pointing to, it's in that little circle. So Liechtenstein is a tiny little principality. It's a country. It's a principality of Switzerland, and it is smushed in between Austria and Switzerland. You can ride your bike north and south across the country and east and west across the country. It's just a tiny little sliver of land, but it is its own entity. So that's where we're from. We make a lot of money globally, so over $5 billion in revenue. We just reached over 30,000 employees worldwide. We're really big into giving back, so we have an entire foundation that builds sustainable housing in the Philippines, that brings music to people, to children in South America to help them learn leadership and coping skills. And we do a lot of great work as far as micro businesses in Africa. So we're really big about giving back. Our motto and kind of what we strive for is building a better future. And we do that by putting forward and building the right communities for our future. All right, I'll go ahead and skip forward. So what does Hilti do? Hilti is a manufacturer of what most people think of as power tools, but we also manufacture engineered solutions. So I mentioned I'm an engineer. I am just that, but I work for this power tool manufacturer sales company. How do I fit in? So I actually have been working with, we have an entire segment of business that is nothing but structurally engineered connection. So we have something like a wall and a column, a wall and a beam, different connections that hold together parts of the building, and they need to have a connection there, a fastener that fasten those two items together. And that's what Hilti produces. So when I talk about working in construction, obviously I'm a part of the very large construction industry, but most people, when I talk about construction, they immediately think, okay, a hard hat, a neon vest, a hammer, a nail, and some work boots, and I'm out on the job site physically building things. And that is often what we think about when we think of construction. It has very humble beginnings. It's one of the oldest professions around. So long as humans have been building structures, we've had people constructing them. But it is very interesting because we see that we're kind of at this nice catalytic point where technology is really starting to shape construction. And construction's been slow to move, unlike other industries that have more readily adapted. They've taken technology, they've put it into their industry, and they have since seen a lot of development in the way that they do things. And we're kind of at this focal point right now where technology is starting to become very ubiquitous across the job site, and it's impacting the way that we design, that we build, that we think about projects in general. So it's a very exciting time to be in this industry. Another thing that you typically don't think of when you think of construction is diversity. It's been, again, a very traditional, conventional industry for a long time, and that's changing. Up on the left, you can actually see a picture of one of my teams that I worked with in about 2017. So even a few years ago, we've had a really diverse group, really diverse organization, and the industry continues to evolve in that direction. So it's for everyone, and anyone can succeed here. I mentioned how technology is making the way we build very creative, and it's really changing the way we do things. But what goes along with technology are services and software. So I talk about how we're a manufacturer. We produce product, we manufacture it, we sell it, we do all of those parts and pieces. But now you can't just have a hammer drill. You have to have services and software and smart technology and Bluetooth enabled things and all of these different connection points that make the entire project more valuable when we add up all of the individual pieces. And of course, the final product is greater than the sum of its parts. And what's exciting for you young'uns listening out there is that I mentioned technology is becoming more and more important to the construction industry. Digital skills are something that you guys have a strength inherently because of the time in which you grew up. So there really is, this is a rife industry for you to come in with a lot of inherent strengths that maybe some of the older generations don't have, that you can then leverage to fast track your career in construction. So I talked about the fact that Hilti is this manufacturer and that we're in construction industry. So where does Hilti fit in exactly? So let's just kind of do a really quick overview of who is involved in a construction project. So we're going to use this building over here as an example. So this project over here has an owner. So an owner says, I want to build a building, and this is going to be my new office, for example. So this is my new headquarters in Dallas, Texas. And the first step that I need to do is I need to find an architect, someone who's going to represent the owner and create a vision of what the owner is looking for. They're also trying to make sure that this building is compliant to all of the different international building codes and local codes as well. The architect then is bringing on someone that is the general contractor. That's the person who's for the majority of the project responsible for actually building it. They bring in a structural engineer. That's someone like Jonathan Brower, who's actually going to be designing all the pieces and parts that go together to make sure that the building is structurally sound. And they might work with a specialty designer as well. So for example, if this building has a glass facade, they might be working with a facade consultant because that glass is a building envelope. It's not actually holding up the structure. It's just putting a protective outside to make sure that water and temperature and nothing else impact the inhabitants of the building. So they might be working with a couple of different people as well. And then the general contractor, while they are responsible for construction of the building, they are going to be subcontracting out different parts of that structure to different subcontractors. So this might be a concrete subcontractor who's going to be pouring the concrete for the outside of this building. This subcontractor might be a mechanical contractor, and they're going to put in all of the HVAC and all of the mechanical fittings that you need within inside the building, and et cetera. You'd have lots of different people within these buckets. So where does Hilti fall with each of these different places? Any ideas?
You get hired by a sub?
Get hired by a sub. So that's a great question. So that's one way to think of it. So yeah, we produce products and we offer services and software. And those products are absolutely going to be used by those subcontractors who are then going to be executing the work and building the building. So whether that is a hammer drill that a concrete manufacturer needs to create a hole, to drill a hole into the concrete. That could be a steel and metal contractor who needs a fastening or an anchor to anchor this glass to the outside to each of those floors of the building so the glass is hanging on the side of it. There's a lot of places where Hilti would sell or provide services to these subcontractors down here. What I think is so fun is that Hilti really touches every single part of this entire process. So we provide tools and purchasable items for these subcontractors to then use on the job site. We provide services and different software to the general contractors so that they can keep the job site moving fast. They are working with logistics and making sure that the right materials are getting to the job site at the right time. We work with the structural engineer as well as the architect to help them with different elements of the building that they're designing, because a lot of those products that we create are heavily engineered, heavily technical products that sometimes you need to go to the expert, the manufacturer, to get the support that you need in the design phase. And then lastly, at the owner level, we do have software and other long-term maintenance services that can help the owner best maintain that entire structure in the future. So I want to share with you all the ways that an engineer can potentially work within a sales organization or a manufacturer. So I've been with Hilti for 7 years now, shy of, and I have had 3 roles here to date. The first I had was when I started with the company, and I was a field engineer. So to the right, you can see this picture of me in my Hilti car, and I was responsible for the geography of kind of the DFW area, the west half of it, as well as West Texas and Western Oklahoma. So I drove in between those different areas, and my role was to support the design engineer, the structural engineer, like Jonathan, in their office as well as on the job site to make sure that they had all of the assistance they needed in designing their projects, so that they knew how to use our software, they understood the differences between different fastening types and why they might want to use one over the other for a different situation. And then I went to the job site to help the contractor and allow them different trainings or to provide troubleshooting, because nothing ever really goes right the first time in construction, and we end up having to do a lot of fixes. So I was a consultant to clients that were both structural engineers and contractors. I was a business analyst for my local team, because again, it's a sales organization. But most of the time I was in problem solving mode. I was a technical resource. And again, one of the cool things about this job is I get to work with all kinds of people. So I work with structural engineers, I work with contractors, I worked with inspectors, I worked with internal sales team members, I worked with external design engineers. There's just a whole group of people that I got to work across different geographies and learn a little bit about how each geography is different too, because a building that's built in Texas is not the same as the building that's built in San Francisco, is not the same as a building that's built in New York, right? There's differences in every single geography. But overall, my responsibility as a field engineer was to, at the end of the day, make sure that the buildings in my area were a quality production, that those anchors were correct, that they were doing the job that they needed to. Making sure that the installation was done properly and safely so that the building is safe for those who use it in the future, right? We always want to make sure that the occupants are made safe in the buildings that we design. I then went into this thing called technical marketing, which is pretty much marketing to engineers. So it's great that I had so much time working directly with engineers as a field engineer, because that was the audience I was speaking to. So in that role, I was responsible for creating continuing education and trainings and detailed design literature, any kind of content that you would want to share with a structural engineer. But I wasn't restricted to my geography of Oklahoma and parts of Texas. I was responsible for all of the US and Canada, which is also very exciting because I got to learn more about Canadian building codes. I got to learn about seismic design on the West Coast. I got to learn about historic masonry that's all over the East Coast with those older cities. And so I really got to expand my understanding of the complexities of different construction processes, different geographical base materials, code requirements, all these different things in between. So it was definitely very eye-opening. I got to travel all over the United States and Canada, which was really fun. But I was always still relying on my engineering degree, my engineering knowledge, and my experience to be able to help improve the knowledge of structural engineers across our area in North America, which is pretty cool. And again, the types of people that I got to work with only expanded as I'm working with different people from even greater geographies than I was used to, as well as working with a lot of industry professionals and industry leaders to work on higher level conversations. I mean, like code development, we're talking about large publications, all these different cool things. And again, when it comes down to what was my responsibility as an engineer, it's always about making sure that the information that is out there is quality and it is something that is valuable to the end user. We're always trying to make sure that the buildings and the connections that we design are safe, reliable, and that they are the quality connection that our engineers need to make sure that that building is safe for the occupants. That's always the #1 prerogative. And lastly, what was so exciting about this is it started getting me to think a little bit more strategic about why we do things and the longevity of business and why we do things the way we do. So a couple of big accomplishments I had in this position that I think is important to share with you is I'm an engineer, I have an engineering degree, but now I'm in this marketing thing, and that's not really something that a lot of engineers know a lot about. But because of the technical content and the depth that I was working in, I was able to get my professional engineering license. So just like you'll hear from Jonathan and Ashlyn, in order to be a professional engineer, you have to go through a lot of technical rigor. You have to be able to demonstrate all of the work that you've done. And one thing that I was really worried about is not having designed anything anymore since I left college. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get my PE license. And what I'm excited to share is that with a role like field engineering or technical marketing, you're not designing necessarily what's going on, but you have to have a strong engineering foundation. And as you continue to work with projects and different engineers and different contractors, you are starting to build such fantastic experience and expertise really in connections and structural connections. So I had enough breadth and experience in those two roles to be able to earn my PE license. So it's not just I'm in marketing and I'm putting pretty pictures up on a PowerPoint and putting some nice words behind it. There really is a lot of technical content there that is so deep. It's in the weeds, and it definitely requires an engineer to be successful in them. I also started kind of utilizing this love for speaking and for sharing engineering wisdom and knowledge with people, and my love for engineering as a co-host of a podcast. So if you're interested to learn more about structural engineering, there is the Structural Engineering channel. You can look it up on your podcast app or iTunes or whichever app you might get your podcast from. And myself and Matt Picardle are the two co-hosts for that. So I've been doing that for over a year now. And that's another way that I can help use my engineering expertise to get really cool information out to people. Now I'm in my third and final role, and I'm a product manager. So I've officially transitioned from engineering marketing now to product marketing. So I am marketing specifically to the contractor, to the person who's going to be purchasing and installing that structural connection, that anchor. And this is really where I've started to transition some of that engineering know-how into business applications. So now that I know all of the technical elements of an anchoring application, of a building, how do I build a business off of that, which is very cool. So I'm responsible for a portfolio of different products. I provide business analysis. I do competitive analysis. So if you are on team sports now, if you're a competitive person, business is kind of fun that way. I actually recently just started learning to play Catan. So have any of you guys played Catan before?
The board game?
Yeah, the board game.
I haven't played it.
Okay, so I highly recommend you play Catan. And if you love it as much as I do, playing Catan is basically business. You can learn as much from playing Catan as you can getting a business school degree. So I started playing this a few years ago, and now as a product manager responsible for a business, I'm like, oh, I'm basically just playing Catan all day. That's what my job is, which is pretty neat, right? You're trying to think about where you're going to source materials. You're thinking about what materials are most important. You're strategizing, you're prioritizing what your plan of attack is. How are you going to grow? How are you going to achieve these different objectives? It's very fun. But I still require that engineering background that I have in order to be the subject matter expert for my highly engineered technical portfolio. So again, I'm doing lots of cool things with that engineering degree, just in a very different manner. I'm not designing, I'm thinking about problem solving very differently. And now that I'm in this position, I work with even more people globally. I have late meetings with my Asian colleagues. I have early mornings with my European colleagues. I get to travel all over the world. This is actually a picture of me in Liechtenstein at in our headquarters. And this is kind of in the foothills of the Alps. So it's absolutely beautiful. And that's one of the Alps right there in the back. And now I'm really thinking about long-term, how do we develop future anchors that are going to be better? We get to think about the future of construction. We think about the way technology is changing the way we work. And we're starting to, in this position, really I'm responsible for figuring out what's the next thing that's going to be most useful to the job site. What's going to make Jonathan's job easier when he's designing? So it's very much future thinking. There's a lot of creativity that's required, and a lot of open-mindedness, which is really fun. So in this role, because I have an engineering background, I was actually chosen as one of 3 people from around the world to be involved in a special project, and that's what brought me here to Liechtenstein. So 3 engineers across the entire Hilti world were chosen, and I represented North and South America, which was pretty cool. I started going back to grad school, which I recommend if you think that's the smart thing to do. But once you get through your undergrad, it's okay to take a few years off to go work, learn if you like being in the industry, and then decide what you want to do and go back to grad school for. So right now I'm going back for my master's in business administration. And I've also had the opportunity, again, to use that engineering knowledge to provide technical content and be published in different publications. So one is Structure Magazine. I've also been published in Texas Civil Engineer. So then using that engineering muscle to be able to share highly technical information. All right, so how does someone get into a role like this? I mentioned a lot of different aspects that I did to be prepared to be an engineer. One thing that I think is really important that you guys are all probably doing in high school is you're taking advantage of the advanced classes that you can, right? So AP, IB, TAG, whatever classes you can to help continue to get you into those advanced levels of math and science, of course, are going to be really helpful. I was really big into German, and I love the German language, which is great when you work for a German company. But one of the things that I mentioned earlier was taking on leadership opportunities. And you don't have to be the president of every club, but showing that you take initiative and that you can plan and organize and that you can bring people together and that you can achieve goals as a team is something that can really set you apart on resumes, as well as when you are in a room of teammates and you're looking to get that promotion. You've already started to build those muscles and provide yourself a really strong foundation to growing in your career. Again, I think any kind of team sport or band or anything that's greater than you, any kind of extracurriculars that you do shows that you are committed to something if you do it year after year after year. It also shows a great amount of teamwork to be involved in something that's bigger than yourself. I don't think they do it anymore, but when I was in school, there was a competition called Redesign Your School, where you did just that. You created some kind of project, you redesigned a school, and then you sent it in. And this was a really great opportunity for me to see if I even liked architecture and engineering. When I was a freshman and sophomore, I thought, those are pretty cool. I like buildings and I like, envisioning drawing things and putting together floor plans. And I thought I liked all these different things. And so I tried it out, right? You got to try it out and see if you actually like it. So I did pretty well. I actually was a national finalist in that competition. And I had the ability to go to Washington, D.C. There was a press conference. There was a big gala. There was a lot of really cool things that came from that. I also won some scholarship money, which is very good for you guys if you're likely to have to pay for some of your college or all of your college, like I was. Again, I wanted to test out the my love of engineering or architecture. Something with buildings is what I knew I wanted to do, but I didn't really know what to do. So I ended up going to UT Architecture Camp. And I'm so glad I did that because I found out I did not want to go into architecture. And that's also okay, right? We have to try things because, whereas the Redesign Your School competition confirmed, man, I really like buildings. Going to UT Architecture Camp, I realized I really don't like sitting in a room in a studio for hours and sleeping here and building little models. And the architecture thing wasn't for me. So I was able to kind of confirm that that wasn't the right move and to pursue engineering. And outside of all of this, I also had to earn money because I had to pay my way through college. So I was a hostess and a server in different restaurants. And you may work in retail, you may work in a restaurant at your age, but whatever it is you're doing, that is really valuable experience that you're getting. Don't be afraid to put that on a resume. It's important to show that you've been in the workforce, that you can hold a job for an extended period of time, and that you have that experience. You learn valuable things there as well. And I would say the number one thing you can learn there is something no one can teach you in the classroom, which is how to work with others. You've had to be in team projects before, you've had to work with your teacher, you've had to play nice, but really when you're in the workforce, you learn invaluable lessons you can't get anywhere else. So don't be afraid to, first of all, have those working opportunities, and don't be afraid to put them on a resume. They're very valuable. I went to the University of Texas at Austin, so hook 'em horns to anyone watching. I studied civil engineering, so again, I kind of confirmed engineering is more the path for me rather than architecture. And I still loved speaking German, and it was something I really enjoyed in high school, but I didn't really know how it fit into my future. So while I started off as just an engineering major, I ended up adding another major later in my career, which was German, and that's totally fine. Maybe you add on a minor, maybe you do a double major, maybe you just stick with one major and have something that's fun on the side. But German wasn't something that I was ready to let go. And I also thought it was a really healthy balance to a very highly technical, dense engineering curriculum. I needed that one class throughout my week that was kind of working the other side of my brain. And I think that really helped me succeed in my engineering classes because I wasn't always exhausted from really hard and rigorous engineering courses. I ended up doing a study abroad, which I thought was really valuable. Again, that was kind of a situation where, oh God, like I think I want to live abroad one day, but I don't know if maybe I can make it, maybe that's something I don't like. I've never lived abroad. So I went and tried it. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my entire college career. And it did confirm, man, buildings and German language are just my thing. And I love that those are two things that I want to do. And it confirmed that my path forward included those two passions. I found this organization I mentioned earlier, trying all of these different things that you think you're interested in, and then really diving into the ones that stick and really are, get you excited. My couple of first years on campus, I tried a lot of different things. I tried German club. I tried some different like academic fraternities. I tried a lot of different things on campus because I wanted to get a feel for what was out there, what was the opportunities, and to meet different people. And so while I tried a lot of different things, I found one organization that really it felt like home, it felt like family, and they're still some of my best friends today, and that was the American Society of Civil Engineers. I started off as just a member. I quickly got into an officer position that was just pretty small, but it got me involved. And I continued year after year to build my leadership there. And in my final year, I was the president of the chapter, which actually is the exact reason that I have the job that I have today, is because my company was looking for student leaders who showed that they want to step up, that they wanted to take initiative, and that they were going to lead the charge at their really fantastic university. So again, those leadership roles are so critical to you standing out from the crowd. GPA in the long run really doesn't mean that much. So don't worry about getting straight A's. I would, as someone who looks at resumes now, I'd much rather have a B student who has leadership experience, who has work experience, who shows breadth in their interests. So don't be afraid to go try different things and make sure you don't spend all of your time just shooting for straight A's. I got involved in another competition. Again, Concrete Canoe is this really crazy competition where you're literally designing, building, and then racing a 20-foot long canoe made out of concrete. And that was such a cool experience because not only did we compete against other schools within Texas and Mexico, one of my years we made it to nationals and we got to race against students from Canada and all across the US. And it was just one of the most amazing, eye-opening experiences, as well as something that was a great networking opportunity. I met so many people that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten to meet, and I've got to watch their stories unfold as we connect on places like LinkedIn. So again, don't be afraid to put yourself, if you're interested in something, take every opportunity you can to learn more about that and continue to build your expertise, even if it's something as silly as Concrete Canoe. So what does a career path forward look like? I mentioned, I did all these things to confirm my passions in engineering and German. And then Hilti hired me right out of college and I became a field engineer. I then moved into this other thing called technical marketing. And then from there, I went on to being a product manager like I am now. But what's so cool about being an engineer in a large organization, a corporation like Hilti, where there are 30,000 people, there are hundreds of different roles and hundreds of different, divisions and groups and geographies, that really the sky is the limit. And if you have that engineering degree behind you, if you have those letters, professional engineer, behind your name, you've confirmed to people, you've performed and demonstrated to people that I can look at complexity, that I can look at a puzzle without all the pieces, and I can still find a creative solution. I'm a problem solver. I can look at the entire picture and I can figure out what it is we need to do next. And that gives you the opportunity to do whatever you want. Engineering can allow you to, it really opens the door to anything. Our CEO globally is an engineer. I think additionally on our entire executive board, there are 22 people and some 16 of them hold engineering degrees. So it is very, very much a catalyst to allow you to do whatever it is you want to do in life if you have that engineering degree behind you. So if I haven't sold it to you enough, I'm not doing a very good job and maybe I shouldn't be in sales, but engineering is definitely something that allows you the freedom to pursue whatever it is you want. I mentioned that there's all different kinds of opportunities across the world. We work in over 120 countries across the globe. We have many R&D facilities, one of which is actually right here in Irving, Texas. We also have different hubs. So rather than have all of our headquarter functions in Liechtenstein, we have an engineering headquarters in Italy. We have an engineering headquarters in Plano. We have a logistics headquarters that's in Australia. They're all over the place, so that there really is, if you have a passion for travel like I do and experiencing different cultures and living someplace new for a couple of years, again, if you're interested in doing it and you have the passion to go after things, sky is the limit and you can really go wherever the wind blows you. I like to usually end on what are some of the skills that I find are the most important for a really successful engineer. Because most of the time when I ask high schoolers, they say, well, they should be really good at math and really great at science. And they should be a problem solver, which 100%, those are some critical aspects of an engineer. But I would say, again, I would take a B or C student over someone who gets straight A's if they have some of these more foundational characteristics. One of the things that needs to happen is you have to be a good listener. Engineers don't know it all, and that should be the first thing. I remember when I graduated engineering school, the first thing I thought was, oh my God, I feel like I've learned so much over the past 4 years, but there's so much more out there that I don't know. And so you have to have this humility and eagerness to continue to learn. So you have to be able to say, I don't know everything, and that is okay, but I'm eager to listen so I can learn, and I'm going to absorb that information. I'm going to act on what new information I come up against. And that's especially true now as technology continues to change the way we work so frequently. We are continuously learning. You don't get done with high school, you don't get done with college, and then just never have to learn again. You are continuously learning from professionals and experts all the time. I mentioned a lot that creativity comes into being an engineer. There is, right now you probably solve a math problem in your book, and there is a set problem, and in the back there is a single answer. In the real world, there is no textbook, there is no official problem statement, and there is no answer section in the back of the book. And there is certainly no single answer to any one problem. So being creative and understanding that, you know, there are lines somewhere around this problem, but I don't know where they are. It's amorphous, and I could be wrong where the line is. You have to be open-minded, but you also have to just realize, you know, I'm interested to learn how this problem works, and I am working with a limited amount of information. So it really takes a lot of abstract thought to be an engineer. It's not all hard numbers and lines and data. And I think the final thing, you know, there's a lot of things up here, but I think the final thing is you have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to be engaged in the work that you're performing every day, because then it really doesn't feel like work. I mean, it's something that takes your time, and it's something that should be challenging, but it should be fulfilling. And at the end of the day, you are satisfied in the work that you've done because you know that it accomplished something greater than yourself, or, you know, you got to play with concrete. I love playing with concrete, which I think is something unique that a lot of people may not necessarily get, but it brings me joy and it brings me happiness. So when you're working with something that keeps you engaged and makes you, you know, truly fulfilled at the end of the day, that sets you up for a lifelong successful career as being an engineer. And with that, I'll close. Hopefully you guys kind of realize that engineering is just one of the most fantastic and multifaceted way to allowing yourself the most opportunity and the most exciting future you could have ahead of you.
Thanks, Alexis. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So these jobs that you bounce between through at Hilti, did you ask to, you know, be put into a new role, or did they come to you and ask you? Was it a little bit of both? How did that happen?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. One thing that I really enjoy about our organization is that it's very much, you know, it's a meritocracy. So you earn the success that you get, but then those successes beget you new opportunities. And it's also a place of self-initiative. So if you have the interest to go someplace, if you have the interest to promote or try something new, we're very much a developmentally minded organization, and our leadership looks at where you want to go, and they plot a course for you there. They set out development needs that you need to achieve in order to be successful in that new role, and then they set out a time frame to help you be able to achieve, to be able to bridge that gap. And then when that role becomes available, you know, obviously there's still there's a lot of steps you are going to be interviewing, but because it's not a single line of you're promoting to the next level, you do express that you're interested in something, and they connect the dots for you, kind of, I guess. So in my personal experience, I knew when I was a field engineer that I really wanted to be in technical marketing. It seemed really neat. And then when I was in technical marketing, I really enjoyed it. And as I was in that role and got exposed to new roles, I thought, you know, maybe one day I'll be a product manager. And at that point, actually, the anchor director, who's my boss now, he and I had worked together very closely when I was in technical marketing, and he approached me and said, I'm going to have this role open and you would be really great at this. And I know you thought about doing it, but I think now is the time. So it's a little bit of both, but there's always people who are, you know, mentors and leaders in Hilti who are always asking, okay, well, what do you want to do next? And they sincerely want to help you get to whatever that next thing is.
Very cool. And where are you doing your MBA through?
Auburn, War Eagle.
Okay. So it's been, I guess, 100% online even before all this pandemic stuff.
Yes, yeah. So I started in fall of 2019 before the pandemic hit, and everything has been virtual with the exception of our final capstone course. So we do a final presentation right before graduation. So I'll go to campus just the once. And it's been really nice. Hilti actually pays for part of my grad school, so it's not all completely out of pocket. So it's nice to have not only, you know, their financial support, but also my leadership saying, yes, do you want to go back and learn more? We would love for you to learn more and then come and use those learnings here.
Great. Well, Alexis, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate your presentation. If any of the students have questions, please send those to your teachers and we'll get those passed along to Alexis, and Alexis will get back in touch with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again today, guys. Love seeing you guys.